issue, breaking down the issues that matter.
Another edition of the big issue. And of course, the big issue of the day is new ministers and their targets for Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. As usual, I'm your regular host, George Agba is the name, and with me here in the studio is our in-house analyst, very vibrant one, Chibuzo Okaibe.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, before we go into the big issue of the day, let's quickly look at issues in the news. And of course, what we have here is a news that just broke today afternoon that Nigeria's former minister Diezani has been arrested in the United Kingdom over allegations of bribery. The former president of the petroleum export countries, as OPEC, was charged with bribery offenses relating to her time as Nigeria's oil minister. The United National Crime Agency of the United Kingdom said the former minister, soon after her arrest, was, through her family, has indicated his interest to strongly contest corruption allegations that have been dogging her right from when she was minister and after she became minister. And the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, the immediate past administration, actually began probe of the former minister, and it was actually reported that she sought the attention of President Buhari then, as soon as the former president assumed office, and tried to see if he would be able to initiate a conversation with the former leader on board an airline. Well, that didn't work for her, and of course she quickly went into an exile. And from what we are hearing here is that, according to the head of the NCA's International Corruption Unit, Andy Kelly, Diezani Alison Madueke is being charged for abusing her power in Nigeria by accepting financial rewards for awarding multi-million pound contract. This NCA said Madueke allegedly benefited from at least $100,000, that's $127,000 in cash, and a chauffeur-driven cars, flight on private jet, luxury holidays for her family, and the use of multiple London properties. The charges also detail rewards, including furniture, renovation work, and staff of the properties, payment of private school fees, and gift from top designer shops such as Cartier Jewelry and Louis Vuitton goods. Well, Chibuzo, the former minister is again in the news. It's likely that this time around she might not escape it because she has been arrested already and charges have been leveled against her. But what do you see make out of this particular arrest in the United Kingdom? This is even coming at a time when there was no Minister of Justice and an Attorney General of the Federation, because the one we have now just took oath of office yesterday.
This is now a UK affair. As much as it is a Nigerian that is in focus. But I think broadly, I don't want to go into the because I've not really read
the details of the new charges.
It's been charged. And the matter is going to go through the court process, definitely. So I don't want to really dwell on that. But I think it's just unfortunate that for some time now, anytime you hear about a Nigerian in the UK, it's usually a politician, about a Nigerian politician or a Nigerian elite. It appears to be a pattern now of them being mentioned in lights that are not too favorable for the Nigerian image. this is not good at all. So we just had the case of a Coronado, and before Coronado it was a, it's really not too good. Our politicians or our elite appear to be, having to have this kind of cases against them, and it also shows that perhaps getting justice in Nigeria or having these guys face justice in Nigeria appears to be much more difficult or perhaps easier, to have them run through the course of their case in the UK than in Nigeria. In Nigeria here we have cases that have gone on for almost more than 10 years, and they keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But here we have in the UK, Ronaldo's case was done in our time, record breaking. Put it that way. But his case was also almost the same way. We didn't have to wait forever. Like we're having to wait here in Nigeria for some cases. It is not good for the image of Nigeria, like I said. And I think it's about time we begin to rethink the way we do things here in Nigeria, especially
Well, thank you, Chibuzo. I think the strings that has been pulled to actually lead to the recent arrest and charge leveled against the former minister is a good development to me, because if it was actually the result of the effort of the immediate past administration, or it is something that has been reopened by the Tinubu's administration, I think this case about corruption allegation against the former minister should be tried and judgment passed once and for all. Let Nigerians actually understand what was actually behind this issue of corruption allegation in the oil sector under her watch as petroleum minister, because it is still a fallout of what we are suffering now in the economy.
Absolutely.
Subsidy removal and what have you.
Absolutely, I do agree with you. But again, for me, the problem is not. Of course, we all know how our system is. I can almost bet that if she was being tried of course, she was being tried in Nigeria. How did it end up?
It came out of it.
Good. So it's an indictment. If you ask me, it's an indictment on our judiciary system. That's what this tends to point to. Because one could almost argue that if her case couldn't be tried here, perhaps that is why she's been tried over there. If you had a very a justice system that attends to these things and touches matters as urgently and as swiftly as possible, I'm not sure the UK will be too keen on taking up matters like this. But it does appear as if our justice system cannot provide the kind of justice that the people need. So you see people cheer when they push our elites to go face trial in the UK.
I think there's a congress of opinion among Nigerians that it is as a result of the lack of political will to fight corruption. Then there is still from the government circle under Buhari, they will say it was corruption fighting back. Whichever way, but let's just look at the big issue today, which has to do with the new ministers and their targets for Tinubu's renewed agenda. Well, the new ministers, 45 of them, took their oath of office administered on them by President Bola Tinubu on Monday. And as soon as they reported to their duty post, they began setting agenda and targets for themselves, and reeling it out to Nigerians, telling them what they intend to do. They all gave an overview of what their leadership might look like by design, and in sync with the renewed hope agenda of the Tinubu administration at different engagement with journalists in their offices. Most of them came out with certain kind of policies that sent a wave running through the spines of Nigerians. Of course, we have the FCT minister, former minister of River State, former governor of River State, Nyesom Wike, who vowed to bring structures down in the FCT, illegal structures. Of course, some of them spoke well, and of course, what they said is actually in line with what Nigerians are actually hoping for. These policies will be implemented is another thing. But Chibuzo, what can you make of the new ministers and what they have said so far? And then President Tinubu giving them a very stern warning to deliver on their mandate and not delve into regional politics. We see this unfolding into a very, very pleasant reality for Nigerians who have suffered bad governance in the past.
Thank you very much. So much has been said about the ministerial team, Tinubu's team, members of his cabinet. So much has been said right from the very day the list was unveiled. There was talk about we didn't have enough experts. There was also those who felt it was a healthy blend of experts and politicians. There were also those that said it's probably a recycling of all former governments. It was an assemblage of former governments. And also those who felt it was purely a game of a system to a way, of Tinubu to settle political
IOUs.
Whichever way the arguments win, but the talk goes. They've been sworn in and now they've been assigned portfolios. And then they will be expected to carry out specific tasks. And they'll be given KPIs to function, to meet. Now, I saw a couple of reports about them hitting the ground running, and I laughed. What do they mean by hitting the ground running? These are guys that have just taken up positions. And even some of them, the portfolios appear to be, in my own opinion, awkward. But we'll go into that perhaps later. The critical thing, as far as I'm concerned, is about all sectors are important, no doubt. But the focus for me would be on the finance sector because of the terrible state of the economy, and then the agri sector because of the rising cost of food products. There's a food crisis, whether I like it or not. And then, of course, security. But much more critical for me would be the health and education sector. Because these are two very critical sectors that for decades have not been given the kind of attention they ought to be given. And so that is why we see a lot of protests in these two critical sectors. And I think governments over the years have not paid as much attention that they should pay to these two critical sectors. Anywhere in the world, those are the key sectors by which they judge the progression of any country. But beyond that, those two areas perhaps account for why most nations develop at the pace at which they do. Because they are the building blocks for not just for generations. If you have the healthy people and you have very enlightened people, you can be sure you're going to have very stable, not just stable, but a nation that can stand its place in the community of nations. So I think for me, the ministers of these two sectors will be of keen interest to me, the kind of reforms they will come up with and the kind of designs they will come up with to deal with the critical decade-long problems, the decay in these sectors. The way they're going to go about those two sectors will be very key for me. Yes.
Well, what immediately stands out about this particular cabinet constituted by President Tinubu is that I think it seems to be the largest, so to say, of all cabinets we have had since the return of democracy in 1999. And according to statistics, we have 45 ministers now. Don't forget that 3 were rejected.
Yes.
And that means there is still 3 vacant slots to fill in. That will bring the number to a total of 47. Or is it 48? Yeah, 48. You're quite right. And you can recall that President Olusegun Obasanjo in 1999 had a cabinet of 42 ministers, which he later reduced to 27 and increased to 30 by the time he was leaving office. In 2007, President Umar Musa Yar'Adua had a 39-member cabinet. Then President Goodluck Jonathan now came then and appointed a cabinet of 33 and later 37 just before the 2015 general election. And then in 2015, President Buhari appointed 36, later increased to 42 in 2019. So now, most Nigerians have this misgiving that even from the constitution of the cabinet, shows that the interest of the masses is not being carried along. Because if it's being carried along, what the incumbent president would have thought of first was cut cost of governance. And that means reducing the size of his cabinet. But at the end of the day, this turns out to be the largest cabinet compared to other cabinets we've had since the return of democracy in 1999. Does this correlate with any fact that the size of a cabinet determining what should be seen in terms of governance?
Well, the presidential system anywhere in the world is mostly regarded as a bit more expensive than, the parliamentary system. That has always been the argument. Well, in our own context, in the Nigerian context, at a time like this, many would have expected that the president will run a rather lean cabinet to save cost and to be perhaps to be more precise and spot on political issues. But I think in his own wisdom, he decided to split even existing ministries. Perhaps he was aiming for precision with regards to specific areas he felt would not be properly covered if they were still under some of these ministries. For instance, the blue economy thing, which is becoming quite prominent in global politics, in global economy and global economy, and the culture and art thing, trying to split that with the tourism thing and trying to make tourism much more vibrant and more creative and all of that. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a bad idea, but in a time where we are talking about cutting costs, if you want to cut costs, how do you go about cutting costs in governance, really? That would be something of interest to see, because already, even the other arms of government, you have what is playing at the National Assembly. I'm not sure those guys are even keen on cutting costs in any way. So it's going to be problematic, to see how the president handles that. Then, but I do think that the focus, now that he has done what he has done, the focus should rather be on ensuring that the ministers produce or operate at optimal level to provide maximum value. That is what I think the focus should be on now. But as it is, he has already, appointed as many many cabinet members as possible. The highest, which is, what it is at the moment. But we can't keep crying over spit, because the harm has been done already. But the focus should be on how we ensure that they maximize what they have, give us the best of results. What I wouldn't want to see is to have people who do not have a function, who are not functioning, or who are not providing value remain in office like we saw in the last administration. We had people who spent the whole of 8 years, and it was difficult to really pinpoint what legacy they left at the end of the day. Even if they have produced anything they said, there's no way you be in an office and you not say you did one or two things. But you see, commissioner with the quantity, with the time you spent in that office and with the resources at your disposal, I think not. So the focus should be on ensuring that these ministers deliver value for whatever resources they are given to function, and that shouldn't exclude laying people off. If they are not meeting up with the expectations. I think that should be the focal point, as it were. But again, and I wouldn't want to dismiss those who feel the president was trying to, like I said earlier, balance the politician, balance the IOU
aspect with the technocrats.
So the prayer is to ensure that none overshadows the other. Like the politics aspect of what he has done does not overshadow the need to provide value, and service for the people. Because already how Nigeria works. After every election, the next election becomes the primary thing on the minds of most of our politicians. So that would be the challenge. But it is expected that the president should, ensure that those who he has appointed live up to expectation and get the job done.
Thank you very much, Chukwuzo. Looking at their policies now, most of them reel out their agendas and their targets. Of course, we had the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, asking Nigerians to expect new foreign policy vision soon. Just hope that foreign policy vision will actually also address how we participate in the affairs of the international community, especially our regional body, ECOWAS, and the rest, which is actually the reason why we are fully involved in the crisis in Niger Republic. And then we have the Minister of Agriculture, who has actually promised that he is going to tackle the issue of food insecurity. That is a thing that is the major crisis now in the country. And then we have the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, who said he's going to ensure the rule of law. Yes, these are all the kinds of things we hear them talk. And if you understand most of the policies they are really now, the agenda they are really now, they are actually in line with what is needed to be implemented in the country to make Nigeria a better place. Whether they can be able to do it, they have the political willpower to actually implement most of the policies they promise to come out with, is something that is left for Nigerians to figure out for themselves. But let's look one particular aspect. Although most of them are technocrats who have actually given this assurance. And then we have the ones of the political IOU, especially former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, who came out and vowed to bring down illegal structures within the nation's capital. Say he has the mandate of President Tinubu to do so. And most Nigerians took what he said with a pinch of salt. Why some Nigerians, majority of them, feel that Wike is not a man who says a thing, and you begin to dismiss it as talk being cheap, considering his antecedent in Rivers State when he was governor. Despite the fact that most people might see him as a political nuisance for his open show of his positions most times, Wike is a factor to reckon with, because he has actually proven that he is a man who can work, and then on the political turf, he can always spring up a major upset, like what he did to the People's Democratic Party. But the truth of the matter is that the new position Wike is assuming is quite different from what he was a governor. He's an appointee now of the president compared to when he was the chief executive of his state. And now he said he has a mandate of President Bola Tinubu to sanitize the FCT. And he was pointing directly to ministers, ambassadors, he named them. And all of them were prominent persons in the society. Most Nigerians say they see Wike running into trouble very soon because if I do this, it might not go down well with him. What do you think about Wike's own case in terms of what he has come out with as his own agenda?
Well, I wouldn't make this whole thing about Wike. It shouldn't be about Wike.
Of course, no, but I think we just
pick
him as
by
a...
the time, I don't think it should be made about Wike. No doubt, he's the FCT minister. He has proven over time to be a very an abrasive character. He likes to be in the news. He enjoys the spotlight. He likes to be controversial. He cuts controversy. He has cut that kind of image for himself, So that is why most times I don't want to marry the character with the job that has to be done. Clearly, there's a job that has to be done. His assignment is very clear as to what he has to do as FCT minister. No doubt, if there is a master plan that he has to keep to, he's obligated to do that. If people are working against or are obstructing the master plan, by the nature of his job, he's inclined to ensure that things work right. We are still in Abuja, and I do agree that for some time now, it has become less. It has become less. Most of the infrastructure has no longer, especially in the last 8 years. We saw how messed up the whole city. Go to certain areas, became smelly and all of that. The standard that Terrify kept left it as of the time he was leaving. It's no longer the city center, at least. So, if somebody comes and wants to do that, which is the person's job in any city, he should be able to do. So, regardless of whether the person has an abrasive character or not, in any case, the courts is there. The courts are there. The judiciary is there. If he infringes on the right in the way he goes about his work, he can always take him to court and challenge what he has done. I don't think we should be given the kind of reverence to do anything outside the provisions of the law. So it's very clear. So that's why I said for me, it's not about Wike as an individual. It's about what the law provides for them. And I think that's what Nigerians take him up on. We shouldn't go outside what the law provides for him to do. That being said, I think in the light of where we are, what's local on the mind of the government is ensuring that the welfare of the people is front and center. I think that is fundamental. I think for me that's the summary of everything. Whether the ministerial welfare of the people is front and center. Not that the ministers are. I want to say government that has human face. The government that will pay heed to the actual needs and desires of the people. We do not want to see a government that is totally detached from what the people are actually going through. People are going through a lot as we speak. Inflation is real. The inflation in the system is not just on paper. It is real. People can't afford to buy things in the market anymore. Things are expensive. And I saw the palliative thing they brought the other day. There's an incident in the park where they had to, in fact, it's really appalling. So these are things, and I think the government should perhaps set up a committee that will, whose intelligence will focus on what the people are actually, what the grassroots is going through per time, so that they actually feel the pulse of the people, not what some advisor who is isolated or cocooned also within that elite space tells them. They have to have a way of reaching the grassroots and feeling the real pulse of the people. People are going through a lot of pain. A lot of pain. So that's the critical issue I think the government should pay attention to, while it focuses on the broader issues. But where we are right now, where Nigerians are at the moment, it's not easy. For want of a better word.
Thank you very much, Chibuzo. Time is not on our side. If not, we'll go on and look at what these ministers have on the table to offer and how it's going to impact on the lives of Nigerians who have always bear the brunt of misgovernance in the country. Well, this is where we draw the curtain for today's edition of The Big Issue. Of course, I will not fail to thank you, our viewers out there, for keeping tab with us. And of course, I would like to appreciate our in-house analyst, Chibuzo Kaibe, for addressing the big issue the way it should be addressed. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of this program. Have a wonderful day.
TV for God and country.